What's up everybody, welcome to the video. We're here talking the YellaWood 500 at Talladega Super Speedway for Sunday, October 2nd, I believe around 2:30 p.m. I want to say it's an earlier start time this weekend, but you know me, I love super speedways. They're some of the most fun races to watch. And fortunately, we are actually making this video. I was not sure I was going to be able to do one this week, as you guys know, I live in Fort Myers. We got absolutely hammered by that hurricane, but fortunately got power just last night, so we got a bit lucky here. I'm really excited to talk about Talladega, and we can never really predict what's going to happen, but what we can do is try to build lineups in an optimal fashion based off of what we've seen in the past at these super speedways. And if anything tells you from what you saw at Daytona just about a month ago, stacking the back is usually the best way to approach these tracks. But anyway, if you're brand new here, my name is Pennell. I break down NASCAR and NFL DFS each and every single week on this channel. I'd be very shocked if anybody is new here, considering we're in the heart of NFL season. NASCAR is just about over, but if you're still here watching, truly do appreciate that. And if you do end up enjoying today's free content, the only thing I ask in return, if you can just leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're brand new, and hit that bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. And feel free to leave a comment down below saying whatever you want to say, because I cannot stop you. And don't forget to check out the sponsor of the show, PrizePicks, because they do make these videos possible. And as of right now, if you're a new signee over on the website, you can use promo code CPEN, take advantage of the instant deposit match bonus up to $100. It is free money. Use it to your advantage. With that being said, I think that'll be it for the plug. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And as previously mentioned, this is your YellaWood 500 at Talladega Super Speedway. This is our second time visiting the track. There's your outline of it. It's massive. It's a super speedway, most comparable to Daytona, just a little bit longer and also a little bit more wide. So sometimes the wrecks can be a bit more hit or miss, but with this being the fall race in the playoffs, I would definitely expect some carnage here. And the way they've been racing this year, it feels like each and every single track is either a mini Daytona or Talladega. So I'd be very shocked if we don't see some guys making some stupid decisions and causing some massive wrecks. And we have under 200 laps and just over 130 total dominator points. But with the fact that we have drafting at these track types, you can't project fast laps. Those are completely random throughout the field, so it nukes nearly all the dominator points. Anyway, yes, it's nice if you have the main lap leader, but you still have to finish. It's really about all where you finish or what the place differential is. Because if you start second, lead 40 laps, and finish 10th, that's great, but you're not going to be in the optimal lineup. And just for point of reference here, we can look at some of the past optimal lineups this year at the super speedways. And you're going to notice from Daytona, just about I forget, was that just a few weeks ago? I forget exactly when, but Daytona 500 this year, guys starting 7th, 16th, 38th, 5th, 33rd, and 34th. Like, it's fine to target a few drivers up front, but they pretty much have to finish in the top 3 for that to work, depending on exactly where they're starting. But as you can see, an average starting position of 22.2 here. If we scroll down even more, we have Atlanta, which is it's more of like a hybrid. It's super speedway, obviously, but it's not quite Daytona or Talladega. But even then, 12th, 26th, 9th, 7th, 13th, 33rd. We've kind of seen the two Atlanta races have some drivers starting closer to the front than we would normally at Daytona and Talladega. If we keep scrolling here, I believe we have the first Talladega race, which was 28th, 12th, 27th, 19th, 14th, and 16th. Average starting position just inside the top 20. And if we look at, I believe Atlanta is the next one where we had the drivers starting 1-2 with Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain, because they both finished 1-2 and they let some laps. So go figure there, but it's still 22nd, 25th, 24th, and 27th. So for the most part, it is place differential. And then we had the absolute insane Daytona race not too long ago where we had Austin Dillon who won the race from 21st, and then 37th, 34th, 33rd, 35th, and 36th with an average starting position of 32.7, and it left just about $20,000 on the table. So feel free to leave some money on the table this week. Feel free to get weird with your lineups. If you have a bunch of guys that are just pure scrubs in your lineups, that's fine. Now, you might not be doing great until there's a big wreck, but that's kind of the anticipation there. So for the most part, yes, target drivers from the back, but do not be afraid to get a few guys starting close to the front that you think can win. And I tend to do that more at Talladega than I do Daytona anyway, because the wrecks can be a little bit more hit or miss, but I would still expect carnage. And moving over to the driver by driver breakdown, if you're wondering my overall thoughts on the pricing this weekend, as I would say to Super Speedway, does not matter. I don't care what these prices are. I'm not maxing out my salary anyway. And we have some pretty good drivers starting close to the front, which I always like because they're going to go over-owned, and I'll take my lower-owned guys starting in the back, even though they don't have quite the name value, and it's not going to feel as good plugging them in. And also, if you want access to the spreadsheet that I'm showing you, it's the beginning of the month, so it is the best time to sign up Links down below in the description for that. But the cheat sheets, projections, optimizers, ownership projections, even though it's football season, still doing all this stuff, plus the article as well. And also covered the NFL. We have NBA starting soon and a couple more days of baseball. So tons of content getting posted. Do think you'll enjoy it. Just come in, check it out. You enjoy the Discord. Very fun time over there. Anyway, let's get into the breakdown here. So it really doesn't matter who the driver is. Like, yeah, it matters a little bit, but equipment doesn't really matter too much. It's all really just about place differential. Avoid the wrecks, and whoever there is at the end is going to give you a chance to win some money. But we'll start top here with Denny Hamlin, the most expensive driver on both sides. I get it. He's a great plate racer, but he's starting in third. For him to be optimal, he has to win the race. That's really the only way I could see that working out, unless just a lot of guys end up getting crashed out that have place differential. But the chances of Denny Hamlin being optimal in this race, it's very slim. Like, yes, he does have tied for the best odds to win this race, but he's also tied with 6 other people. And again, if you play Denny Hamlin, you are hoping he's going to win. I'm assuming he's going to be double-digit ownership, maybe even close to 20%, just because everyone loves playing Denny at these types of tracks. But I'm personally not going to go that route. I'd be fine full fading Denny here. I mean, 25th at Daytona, 25th at Atlanta, 18th at Dega, 29th at Atlanta again, and 37th at Daytona. I mean, if he does anything like that, I mean, I know it can be, finishes are very fluky at these track types, but he has to win. And I'm willing to take a chance that he probably doesn't. Kyle Larson, I will have 0 Kyle Larson. I do not trust him at these track types. And so far this year, his best finish is 4th at Dega. But even then, if he finishes 4th, you can cash with him, but he's not going to be in the optimal. And very similar to Denny Hamlin, he has to win the race, and you lose 1 spot of place differential. Like, I'd much rather play Hamlin compared to the two, but I'm probably just going to cross both off. I just think they're going to have too much ownership, and historically, you don't want to play drivers starting in the top 3. Now, Ryan Blaney is a guy I can get behind. He's $10,400. He's second most expensive driver over on FanDuel, but he's starting mid-pack here in 19th, which I assume is going to have some pretty inflated ownership, so you have to be careful with that in tournaments, because a guy like a Cole Custer starting at 28th can be a better play than Blaney. Just doesn't have quite the name value. But we know Ryan Blaney is one of the best drivers in NASCAR at these track types. His worst finish is 17th and 1 this year, so I would say chances are, assuming he doesn't wreck out early on, probably going to get you some positive place differential. But 15th, 5th, 11th, 17th, 4th, I don't think he's a cash game play, but in tournaments, I'm willing to play him even though he is starting inside the top 20. Logano is very similar to Ryan Blaney, where he's one of the best plate racers, but he can kind of get caught up in the mess a lot. He's a very aggressive driver, an aggressive blocker, and just tends to get him in some trouble. But starting at 11th, I don't like him as much as Blaney because you're starting 8 spots further up, but I do think he has race winning upside, so I think you at least have to play him a little bit in tournaments. Plus, he's really good at Talladega. I mean, looking at some of his numbers, it's always the same story for Team Penske. They have some of the best average running positions. It's just the finishes haven't been there for Joey's the problem, but one of the top dominators for sure. And then Chase Elliott, he's been awesome at the super speedways this season. Didn't finish well at Daytona, but first, 7th, 6th, and 10th at the previous 4. And starting in 16th at only 10K, does have a tie for the best odds to win this race in Vegas. I assume he's going to be pretty popular, so I'll get some exposure to him, but I could probably see him being a bit overowned because of the name value, so I'll try to be careful in tournaments. And not going to play him in cash either, starting in 16th. Dropping down to the 9K range, we have Kyle Busch under 10K. That's 3 races in a row, I believe, where he's DNF'd. It's just not been a good time for Kyle Busch recently. Plus, he got eliminated from the playoffs. I'm not sure how much the motivation is there. Plus, he's changing teams next year to the 8 cars. I don't know. I played Kyle Busch recently, and it has not been fun. But he's starting in 26, and he usually runs well at these tracks. I mean, if you're looking at Talladega specifically, running position of 13.6, but the average finish just tends to get caught up in the mess a lot, but I don't mind it. I mean, finished 3rd at Dega early in the season. I think he'll be pretty popular just because of the place differential. I'm all right with Busch. Fringe cash play for me, but certainly a guy I'm looking to target. Martin Truex Jr., $9,700. Very cheap on Fan, though. I could see him being very popular over there at only $8,500. He is. The next cheapest guy we have is like an Eric Jones or Kevin Harvick compared to DK, so I think you're getting a really nice price point over there. And he's actually been pretty good at the super speedways this year. Not usually a guy I'd play at them too much, but so far this season, 8th, 11th, 5th, 8th, and 13th. 5th at Dega early in the season. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good play. I'll play some Martin Truex Jr. He's just been really good at staying clean. William Byron at $9,500. He's starting in 9th. He dominated Atlanta early in the season, but outside of that, 34th, 30th, 15th, and 38th. He's a tournament target. He's going to be lower owned than a guy like Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney. So if you're looking for a pivot in a somewhat similar starting position, I don't mind it. But if you're playing Byron, you're really hoping for a top 3 or a win. Christopher Bell, pass. I will have 0% of Christopher Bell. Probably going to have 0 of the top 3. I mean, I just think they're going to be over-owned. And you just don't normally want to roster these kind of guys for where they're starting. And for Bell this year, 36th, 19th, 22nd, 23rd, 34th. Like, if you're playing Bell, he has to dominate and he has to win. And chances of that happening in a race like Talladega is very slim. Like, yes, he can lead some laps early on, but it's a really tough path. Tyler Reddick at $9,100. He's starting in 8th, a very similar play to William Byron, but I do trust Byron a little bit more at the super speedways to be able to stay up front. But he did finish 2nd at Daytona, but outside of that, 29th, 39th, 28th, 35th, and so far in the Cup Series, he's had a lot of poor finishes at these track types. So he's a very risky play, probably someone you play about like 3 to 5% if you're doing 150 lineups. Bubba Wallace, $8,900. He's starting in 27th. I imagine he's going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. He's really good at these track types, and it seems like he always starts in the back of these, which always makes him popular, but hasn't had really a bad finish necessarily this year. 11th, 14th, 17th, 13th, 2nd. That's all positive PD for me. He's got legit race winning upside of these track types, so I will have a lot of Bubba Wallace, and I would say he's probably a cash game staple for me. Ross Chastain at $8,700. He's starting in 6th and kind of throwing in the same group as William Byron, Tyler Reddick, where if you're playing him, you're basically banking on a win. Did have a nice 3-race stretch where he finished 2nd, 1st, and 2nd at the super speedways. Finished 40th at Daytona to start the season, 33rd at Daytona again. But again, he won the Dega race early in the season, so I think there's definitely a chance for it. And I know pricing doesn't matter, but he is pretty cheap over on DraftKings, so I'm okay with some Ross in tournaments. But if I'm building 1 to 3 lineups, I'd have a really hard time plugging him in just because, again, he's got to win. Eric Jones, $8,300. He's starting in 12th, and I don't think he's a bad play. He's actually ran very well at these track types this year. 4th at Atlanta, 6th at Dega, 14th at Atlanta, again 17th at Daytona. But he knows how to get up front, and I would not be surprised if we see Eric Jones inside the top 5. It's just a matter of being able to finish up there. But as far as being a low-owned play, he's priced in the same range as Bubba Wallace and Kevin Harvick, so I do think he'd be a decent pivot in tournaments. But just keep in mind, you're going to need a top 5 out of him. And Kevin Harvick, $8,100. He's starting in 24th, fairly priced on both sides. He's been kind of consistent this year at them. We did finish 30th at Daytona, but then 21st, 10th, 12th, 20th. He's a fine PD play at his price point. I'm not going to get overexcited about it. I feel like just because of the name value with Harvick and at this price point, he might go a little bit over-owned because it's not like he's in the very back. He is mid-pack here. So I'd be careful with that, but I definitely have to get some exposure. He does run pretty well at Talladega, and he does have 4 top 10s the past 6 races here, which is actually very good. Dropping down to the 7K range, you have Austin Cindric at $7,900. He is starting in 17th, and he's pretty good at the super speedways this year. I mean, he has 3 finishes inside the top 3, back-to-back third-place finishes, and 1 Daytona earlier in the season. Starting in 17th should be a good tournament play because I assume Kevin Harvick will have some higher ownership, but I always love Team Penske cars at these track types, so I'm one to play some Cindric. Dino Suarez at $7,700. He's been really hit or miss at the super speedways this year. Finishes of 24th, 31st, but also finishes of 6th and 4th. I'd rather play Cindric. I feel like I can trust him a little bit more, but I would have to get at least a little bit of exposure to Suarez. But he is strictly a 20 to 150 lineup kind of guy, not someone if I'm playing 1 to 3 builds or especially cash games. Chris Buschardt, if you can hear the helicopter, it's been crazy here. Just bunch of helicopters, I guess, life-flighting people out of the islands in Sanibel, which are absolutely trash, so apologize if you can hear that. But anyway, Chris Buescher, $7,600, starting in 23rd. You know, a couple years ago, he was a guy that just never really seemed to wreck out at these tracks, but it's definitely caught up to him. That's what I always say. No one's invincible, even if you've been clean. Like Denny Hamlin had the average finish of 2.4, I believe, the 1 year at the super speedways, and as you can see, these wrecks are kind of catching up to him. So no one's invincible. But I don't think Buescher is a bad play for where he's starting in 23rd, but 27th, 33rd, 38th. Showed some upside in Atlanta where he finished 7th, but you got to be careful. Fine play, gonna be lower owned. Don't mind being overweight. Just starting mid-pack is always a bit dangerous. Brett Keselowski, his teammates in a very similar boat, but we know he's a great plate racer. And also he's really good at Talladega. So I don't mind Keselowski here, but strictly tournament play only for me starting in 18th. Austin Dillon's in a very similar boat starting in 20th. You can kind of throw all these guys under a blanket and call them pretty much the same play from Cindric on down to Austin Dillon. But Dillon, he won Daytona. He finished 2nd at Talladega early in the season, wrecked out of Atlanta both times. He can be a bit hit or miss, but he does have top 5 upside. I would have to get to some Austin Dillon. Chase Briscoe, I'm not going to play starting in 5th. Just no thank you. Eric Almirola, very good at Talladega. This is a great track for him, but starting in 4th, you have to win the race, and I just assume that's probably not going to happen, so I feel pretty comfortable getting away from it. Because he's starting 5th, maybe if you want to throw him in a couple lineups, I get it, but I'm not personally going to go that route. Now, after that, we have a nice chunk of PD plays here coming up with Cole Custer, Michael McDowell, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Well, Ricky, I want to mention just because he is really good at plate races, but he's not good at finishing them. He tends to run very well, though, but his best finish this year at one is 22nd. If you're playing Ricky, I would try to expect wreckers or checkers, but a lot of times it happens to be wreckers. But Talladega's not been a bad track for him at all. Tends to be a one that he can get up front. Cole Custer at $6,700. He's starting in 28th. I think he's a fine cash game play here. And no one really loves playing Cole Custer, so I'm hoping Stenhouse and Michael McDowell have a little bit more ownership. But Custer finishes at the top 10 at Atlanta, 16th at Daytona. I think he's a fine play all around. McDowell, I assume he's going to be very popular. Typically a good play racer. I don't think I've even mentioned the track type form here, but if you're looking at the past, I believe 15 race sample size, just all the races from 2019 since then. McDowell average finish of 16.9 at these track types with 11 top 20s, 6 top 10s, and 4 top 5s. Also has a win under his belt. So, yeah, I think McDowell's fine. I already mentioned Stenhouse. Ty Gibbs is theoretically starting 10th, although there's a chance he can move to the rear. Didn't post a qualifying lap in the round of 2. But I don't really care if guys drop to the back of these track types. It's fine. But starting in 10th, I don't really have any interest anyway, so just don't really care. Justin Haley, $6,200. He's starting in 21st. Probably one of the better tournament plays on the slate because he is a very, very strong plate racer. Finishes of 7th, 12th, and 11th at them this year. Has a win under his belt at Daytona a couple years ago because of the rain delay. But Haley's a guy that he knows how to get up front and run around in the top 10. So I think he's fine for tournaments. Should be lower owned than guys like Stenhouse, McDowell, Custer, and probably lower owned than LaJoie, which I get because LaJoie's a machine at these track types. Almost won the Atlanta race until Chase Elliott got into him, but he finished 5th at Atlanta early in the season, 14th at Dega, 14th at Daytona. LaJoie is a very safe cash game play. I would highly recommend him playing in that format. Landon Castle is also a pretty safe cash game play here, $5,800. He's starting in 33rd. Finished 4th at Daytona early in the season, 19th at Dega, 15th at Daytona. As long as he just does his thing where he kind of rides around, waits for wrecks, that's all you can really ask for out of Castle. I wouldn't expect the top 5 ever again, but I guess it's possible. Noah Gragson, $5,600, filling in for Alex Bowman this week. He's starting in 7th, just starting a little bit too high for me. I know he finished top 5 at Daytona, but starting in 7th, we need Gragson to pretty much come close to winning the race. And I know it's not like a normal week where, well, what if he holds his ground? Well, that's all right, but a guy like Castle has legit top 10 upside this week. LaJoie has top 10 upside. You don't usually have that this kind of week. So he's a very risky play. Hermick's a very risky play. I'm probably not going to go there either. Justin Allgaier starting in 31st. Hasn't made a cup race this year for Super Speedway, but for where he's starting, it's fine. I'll have some Justin Allgaier. Just avoid wrecks, and I like all the PD guys. Ty Dillon's a guy that tends to just finish well at these track types, although, as I said, no one's invincible because the wrecks have caught up to him where he's finished 28th, 33rd, and 36th. But overall, the past 11 races for Ty Dillon, average finish of 15.1, 40.2 DraftKings points per race, 8 top 20s, 6 top 15s. I don't think he's a bad play. JJ Yaley at $5,200. He's starting in 36. If you're just looking for a back marker that hopefully should avoid wrecks and gain 10-ish spots, I don't mind that. He finished 25th at Talladega early in the season. That would not be a terrible day. I think he's cash game viable. Burton starting too high for me. And then BJ McLeod, Todd Gillen, Cody Ware. It's kind of weird we actually have Todd Gillen less expensive than BJ McLeod. That's kind of odd, even though Todd Gillen, I wouldn't say he's been the worst driver at super speedways this year, but he's certainly viable starting in 34th. I have no problem with him. And McLeod and Ware, I usually write these guys off, but at these kind of track types, you can certainly play them. I mean, 7th and 6th early this season at Daytona a few weeks ago when there was mass chaos, but they have legit top 25 upside. This really depends on how many wrecks there are. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys this week. A bit of a shorter video, but super speedways are kind of hard to talk too long about because it all really comes down to where are these guys starting? And I'm going to make sure of the guys in the back and maybe target a couple guys up front that I think have race winning potential. But I wish you all the best of luck. And if you do want some access to some extra content, link is down below in the description for that. Tons of stuff I'm putting out there, and I'll have the article up later tonight in addition to the projections, optimizer, ownership projections, and all the good stuff. You guys get the idea. Don't forget to check out Prize Picks as well. Use promo code CPEN. Take advantage of the deals that they got going on over there. Follow me on Twitter if you want at Pennell 16. And I'll leave you guys with that. Wish you all the best of luck, and I'll see you all next time.